there is a difference between predestination and preconditioning. So, according to the Bible, God has predestined. I just want us to go to that scripture quickly, the book of Romans. The book of Romans was written by Apostle Paul. Romans chapter 8, verse 29. Quite an interesting illustration here. Now, Paul is speaking. Let me actually. Wow, this is amazing. Okay, this is amazing. This book, when you get to read it with the Spirit of God and understanding the divine reference it holds, it is very amazing. I want us to start from 26. It says, "Likewise, the Spirit also helps our infirmity, for we do not know what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself." Now, that is a debate for another day why they said itself, because the Spirit referenced here has a personality. The Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. 27. "And he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God." According to the will of God. Verse 28. "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." So, and this is a very famous book, verse 28. All things works out together for good. Not for everyone. Not for everyone. It says to them who love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. So here there is a separation of an audience. Paul puts two groups of an audience. He says to the Romanians, there is a principle that guides good things happening. Even if you're in a bad situation, that bad situation can simply turn out to be something good. But you must have met these two criteria or two conditions. You must love God. And to love God, number one, you must accept and be convicted that indeed God exists. Number two, he says those who are called according to God's purpose. So there are people who are called, but then there are those who are called according to a certain mission, which is God's purpose. But that's probably for another day when we're going to be talking about what's really God's purpose. Here's where my interest is. For whom he did foreknow, he also predestinate. That is the word we are talking about. To be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. All right? And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, he also glorified. So we see a process here. And if you remember, I spoke about being born again. There is a certain divine process. You don't just become spiritually enlightened simply because you've received a piece of information. Or simply because that piece of information has fermented into some kind of knowledge that you are now perceiving as a conviction or as a personal belief or a personal value system. It's a process. There is a renewal process. There is an initiation process. We see that there is a foreknowing that happens because God is omniscience. He's an all-knowing entity. The reason you and me know and don't know is because of lack of time and capacity. That is the reason. There are things that will happen to you tomorrow that you cannot know today. They were meant for your knowledge tomorrow. So you need to wait for time. You need to be able to wait for tomorrow for you to be able to have a certain knowledge about those things. But also there are things that have happened to you in the past, so you know them because the time they were supposed to happen came into its fullness and you passed through it. But with God, He does not move in the limitation of time. There is no yesterday and tomorrow with God. He lives outside the perimeters and the limitation of time. Hence, that's why we say He knows all things. Because I think one of the greatest obstacles between man or humanity and knowledge is time. Another one is capacity, being able, you see, you are where you are right now, watching me. Now, as you are watching me right now, there is information that is happening on SABC1 or whatever TV channel that is in your country, and you are missing that information. So by the end of you watching me, you will not know what the president or the minister or this person said. Why? Because we do not have the capacity to be in several places at once. So we are limited by that very nature, that our attention and focus is not programmed in such a way that we can split ourselves into different places. And with God, fortunately enough, He does not suffer that inadequacy. He has that. So He's all-knowing. He's so that's why here we read that He knew each and every one of us. And when He knew us, He predestined us. Here is where it becomes very complicated, because your question is, God created everyone and everything, right? That is what we all have come to. There is one thing that I really just want to caution us, especially in thinking like that. God created the fundamentals, or let's say God created everything, but men and other spiritual entities have the power to make. From what has been created, we have another dimension of making. Let me give you an example. God created a tree. We can't say God created a sofa. He created a tree. We can't say He created a table. No, it is man who makes a table from God's creation. We get it? So God created a certain system. A system that all humans should be able to live within in order to have a certain kind of result. And that's why you hear that He says He predestined us so that we can be conformed to the image of His Son. So when He foreknew us, what foreknew simply means imagined. He had us in His mind before we came into reality. And what is it that He had in mind when created us? Genesis chapter 1 verse 26. Let us now make man. When He saw that everything was good, everything God had created, the land, the trees, the water, the air, the moon, the sun, the stars, there was enough light, there was enough oxygen for the inhabitation of humanity. He had in mind this picture. He had you and me before the foundation of the earth. It is written in the Bible that He chose you and me before the foundations of the earth. Very, very important. And if He did that, then we know that everything He created was so that it can be conformed within us. He created us for the very... If you've read my book, I interviewed God. I actually speak about what is the greatest thing God invested Himself in, and that is humans. Because He didn't create you and me the same way He created other creations around us. With you and me, there was a specification and there was a specific mention of intent. That shows that let us now. It doesn't say let us make man. It's not an idea that just came on the 60th day when he created man. No, that idea was long pre-thought. There's such a word. It was long foreknown. It was long in God's mind. Even probably before the foundations of the earth and all that was in the earth. You see, when you don't just, no one just wakes up and say, okay, now let us create a car. No. You must have a plan in your mind to say, I want to create a vehicle that will be moving at this pace, and it should be this strong, it should be this durable. It's those precepts that comes before the concept. And that's what you and me are to God. Because the day he said, let us now, that now word is very important. It's very important. It means there was a plan of creating. And at that particular moment, that plan didn't just come and say, now we are creating. No, it means that when he said, let us now, the fullness of time had come for this specific task to be undertaken. And if we look at why that was the fullness of time, we know that he had already created the earth. He had created the habitation for this specific species to come in and be able to survive. When he had to create the sea and the oceans and the rivers before he created the fish. Why? Because if he created the fish before the waters, the fish would not have survived outside the waters. So he had to create a certain environment before he can now create you and me. So he foreknew us. He already knew about you and me before even the foundations of the earth. The question is, when we say he knew you and me, are we saying he knew our mind, the metrics of our behavior? He knew the possibilities. He knew our capacity. He knew ways of our operations, our habits and our attitudes. He knew that. Because he's a God who has the ability not to wait. He doesn't have to wait for you and me to grow up to see the person you are. Because he's not limited by time. Okay, so he foreknew us. And after foreknowing us, he predestinated, and that's where we are going to spend a bit of some time talking about. You see, predestination is like creating a road. When constructors are creating a road from one town to another, they pave first and foremost what is just a route, a direction. There must be direction. From Cape Town to Johannesburg. You see, there is a starting point and there is an end point. That is predestination. So you are saying we are here in Johannesburg, but we need a road that will take us to Cape Town. You don't just say we need a road. Because the moment you say we need a road, that road can literally go around through Cape Town, Durban, and come back and land you right where you are. So there must be a predestination of what, even when you're planning for something in your life, you don't just go like, I want $1 million. And that's why a lot of people don't succeed. $1 million for what? There must be a destination of where you want whatever you are planning to end. So God predestinated us to be conformed to the image. So he has given us now what is that predestined, what is that kept out. He is here. He is here. He hasn't formed us yet. He is just having us, a thought of us in his mind. And in his mind, he's saying, I want to create this kind of species. But this one will be different. How? Here's how different they will be. I want whatever will be happening around in and on this person, they must be able not to just conform to the environment they live in like animals do. If you have lived in the village, there is a chameleon. A chameleon has been created to be conformed to the image of its environment. A lion has been created to be conformed to the image of its environment. You see them by how they live in the jungle. You know, the lion knows that that no matter how bad life gets, it cannot eat grass. It has to hunt for meat. It has been predestined in that regard. There are animals like snakes and other creatures where, because they are prey, they are high-risk preys, they have too many predators looking for them as food, looking at them as food. They've got, even their physical appearance has been created in such way so that it can conform itself to the environment, to the jungle, to the color of the grass, or to the humidity, to the weather, to whatever is happening surrounding them. Now, that is the predestination of those animals. There are certain plants that cannot be planted in a certain area of the continent, but yet they can they can flourish well in another area of the continent. Why? Because the predestination within those plants dictates that they need to have a certain amount of light, certain amount of water, a certain amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide to be able to grow to their utmost potential. And so when he was to create you and me, there was a predestination of why am I creating this? So that they can conform. They should be able to conform to the image of his son. Hello. So the predestination here that we are talking in this verse is not predestination of anything else outside of the destination that God has spoken to us. The end result of humanity in God's mind was so that we are able to conform and be in the image, in the likeness. That's why the Bible, when you go back to Genesis, actually, it says, let us now make man in our image and in our likeness. That simply means to appear physically like we are, to appear visibly like we are invisible. That's image. Likeness, to be able to behave physically like we behave invisibly. And it repeats itself when we read in Romans and say, well, he foreknew those people. He foreknew Adam. When he created Adam, it wasn't a mistake. It wasn't God making an experiment and saying, let me put this together so that something else. No. There was a clear plan in his mind, a precept, a model, a concept within him before it became into reality. And he knew that the end result of this creation I'm creating right now is so that it can conform itself to the image, to the perception, to the condition, to being like his son. So if we are going to talk about how have we been predestined, or how our lives has been predestined, we need to think predestined towards what? His son. Then we need to be able to study his son. Hello? But now, here's the important part about this predestination thing. You know, this predestination. Because now, you create a road. Back to my road scenario. You create a road from Johannesburg to Cape Town. Alright? That's a road. So, and then somebody from Johannesburg decides, I want to go to Cape Town. And they get into their car they use the road you use, and as easy as it is, because that road was designed specifically to take a person from Johannesburg to Cape Town, on the way there are boards telling you you are 500 kilometers away, you are 200 kilometers away. In a kilometer there will be a garage for you to fill. In another, in 3 kilometers there are restaurants for you to eat. You see, it was created for that. It accommodates all your needs on your way, because in creating it, there has to be what we call convenience, so that whatever you need on your way to Cape Town, before you reach Cape Town, you are able to have supply of those things. Now, here's the question. When you are driving from Johannesburg to Cape Town and you drive 100 kilometers, and then you see fuel garage in 5 kilometers, is that mandatory that you pass by the garage? No, it's not. No one is forcing you. They are there to say, hey, here's a way to take you to Cape Town. If you need, not when, not now you need, no. If you need to refill here, refill. But if you don't need to stop. For example, I'm a driver, so what I do is when I'm starting off from where I'm from, I make sure that I pour enough fuel to take me to where I am going. I don't like stopping on the road. You know, there are people who, when they're on a journey, they stop on every garage. They stop. I'm just that kind of a person. When I press the accelerator, the next time I'm gonna stop, I want to be at my destination. And then there are people who, well, they're not like that. They'll pour fuel in Standerton or they will pour fuel in Johannesburg, drive and buy snacks at the garage, drive and pee at another garage, drive and meet a friend at another garage. You know, by the time they reach there, but you see, that is choice. And that is a beautiful point I want to make there. When God predestined our lives, He created us as, He didn't condition us. There is a difference between predestination and preconditioning. These are the two words that most people confuse. Animals have been preconditioned. That means they are not free moral agents. When a lion is hungry, he does not care whether it's you who kept him in a cage for 28 years. If he's hungry, he's gonna eat you up. You get it? Because the lion was programmed, when you are hungry, hunt. We, on the other side, are what is called free moral agents. We have been given an intelligence, a wisdom, a certain kind of cognitive skill to differentiate between right and wrong, between good and bad. We have been given that, so that in our journey from Johannesburg to Cape Town, we must be able to choose whether to turn left onto the garage or to continue our journey. How do we do it? By looking within ourselves. The capacity of my fuel, does it allow me to surpass here? And now that is where most of our challenges begin. How do our challenges begin? There are people who, when you start from Johannesburg driving, you don't pour enough fuel. When you don't pour enough fuel, and now you are driving, and you check, your fuel can only take you 10 kilometers, and your journey is still 500 kilometers, and in 5 kilometers there is a garage. What are you supposed to do? What is the first fundamental thought that will come to you? I must turn and pour fuel. That does not necessarily mean the people who were constructing the road forced you by putting the sign to say turn left for a garage. That does not mean they made it mandatory. No, it is because of your lack of planning from where you are coming from. That's why you are turning there. So it is because the turning there, that action you are taking has been determined by you, not by the people who created the road. Even though when they created the road, they created the road that you must stop in Cape Town. But you see now, when you turn to this garage, that doesn't mean you've arrived. Unfortunately for us, in the norm of life, when we turn at the garage and we park the car, we begin to cry. Where is God? Where is God when things are like this? Where is God when things are like this? No, God is here. He is there in Cape Town waiting. But you see, because you didn't plan well where you are coming from, you had to spend a few minutes refilling yourself. And then you start again driving. You get it? You start driving. But we can't say it is God who forced you to refuel. And unfortunately, we want to blame God at that particular moment. No, but what happens, because if God be for us, then why am I going through this obstacle? Well, could it be that maybe the way you started your journey, you didn't consult with your navigator to say, how far is my journey? And then you decide, okay, how much fuel do I have? Is my oil sufficient enough? Do I have the tires that are required for me to undertake this kind of a journey? Now, those are questions that come in with a free moral agent. Coming back to the story of creation, and we see it very well. God didn't want you and me to be robots. He wanted you and me to be like Him in His image. God is a free moral agent. He chooses. He has a choice. He is not forced by any nature to do anything. That's why we are calling Him a sovereign God. And then when we go to, we need to reference and know that He created everything and He has all the tools and the resources to divert whatever He wants to. And He does when He feeds the birds. He does when He feeds the beautiful flowers in the gardens. He does by the amount of crops that He allows the earth to produce. Just like you and me. But the one thing that He didn't do was to impose His sovereignty on you and me. Because if He did that, we would have been created in His image, but He would have failed creating us in His likeness. So with you and me, He left a certain exception. What exception is that? Free will agent. Free moral agent. He says to Adam, I am creating you. But you see, Adam, you are different from a lion. You are different from a bird. You are different from a tree. This tree cannot choose where it will grow. A tree cannot decide after 5 days, I don't want to be here anymore. And you see a tree picking itself to go stand there. No, a tree, when it's positioned in one place, it will have to grow in that place. He says, Adam, I didn't want to create you in that manner. I want you to be like me. I want you to have a freedom of choice. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you what I have created, Adam, and I want to be able to tell you the functions of these things I've created. I have created a garden for you. In this garden, there are trees which produces fruits. You can eat as many fruits as you want. But you see, Adam, if I just tell you that, you will be conditioned. So I'm going to put a button in Eden to activate the freedom of your moral agents, of your moral character, of your moral being. And how am I going to do it?